Andrew and I were reminiscing about the first time that we met. It was right after I had started a Florida Funder, so it was 2017. I think he just started the business, right?
I was probably maybe a month into full time.
And I'll never forget, you go, I'm starting a business so that grandparents and older people can rent grandkids. And I was like, dude, you are crazy.
It all started with a personal reason. I think really all good businesses do. We're very mission driven, not just because we say we are, but it's really a mission we started to help my grandpa.
Was it an Uber model, like an on-demand type model, or was there, I'm assuming, maybe some work that had to be done more than just a typical background check that an Uber driver would have?
The way you would access our service, the way that worked the most is we would actually call you and do this kind of like white glove interaction, and you get a trusted person on the phone. A lot of the times it would be me.
Talk about the very big moment.
Movement on the whole concept of loneliness from like the healthcare perspective, like it costs money, it lowers outcome, people are more sick, et cetera, et cetera. I think everyone now knows that, especially since COVID, like loneliness is a real issue. So we kind of fit in between this like health tech company and this consumer oriented company, and we didn't really fit in a box. And funny enough, that seems to be true still to this day. We invented something new in a very regulated category that is not used to doing something new, and tried to break into that and did that successfully.
I hope everybody is doing great. Welcome to another episode of Skin in the Game podcast. My name is Saxon Baum, and I am the co-host of the podcast, and so excited to have a great friend of mine who I've known for the greater part of a decade on today. And it's funny, Andrew Parker, the CEO and founder of Papa, is here with us today. But this is not the first time you've been on the podcast, and I forgot about that, right?
I think I was on the OG podcast before podcasts were cool.
You were on the OG podcast. It was you, Alexis Ohanian, and Tom before I became Tom's co-host. Now I feel like I'm always on here by myself, but he still is my co-host.
We got Tom in the room somehow.
Somehow spiritually he's here. How are you, bro? Good to see you.
Life is great. Life is hard, but fantastic at the same time.
Well, I heard you've been traveling like crazy for work, but personal tidbit, you just came back from Italy, and the top part was?
The top part was eating pasta, eating pasta, but in Bologna, a place that I don't think a lot of Americans go to, which I highly recommend. It's like 40 minutes from Florence, and they invented bolognese and they invented tortellini, so highly recommended.
You got to go, right? I'm always fascinated. You go to Italy, you eat and drink so much, but somehow you feel good the whole time. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I felt good, but I made a real big effort to gain weight, and I think I may have achieved it.
Hey, at least you hit your goals, right?
Yeah, seriously.
No, but so excited to have you today. Before we got on the pod, Andrew and I were reminiscing about the first time that we met. It was right after I had started a Florida Funder, so it was 2017. Florida Venture Forum early stage conference in Tampa at the Intercontinental Hotel. And you, I think, had just started the business, right?
I was probably maybe a month into full time.
And I'll never forget, I was like, oh, what are you working on? And we had just met that day. And you go, I'm starting a business so that grandparents and older people can rent grandkids. And I was like, dude, you are fucking crazy. Crazy.
Grandkids on demand. That was it.
Grandkids on demand. And what an amazing journey you've had. So let's kick it off there. Tell us about the business. Tell us about the journey, how it started. The company's called Papa, and now, give or take a decade in, made some amazing strides with the business. Give us the backstory. Get us up to speed where we're at today.
Yeah, sure. It all started with a personal reason. I think really all good businesses do. We're very mission driven, not just because we say we are, but it's really a mission we started to help my grandpa. My grandpa, who was Papa, needed companion care and help and support. He didn't need traditional home care. He didn't need 40 hours a week. He needed, me to come over. But like everyone else, I was busy with my life. So I said, why don't we get Papa a pal? And I posted on Facebook to try to find a pal. I found someone. And I think the most surprising part was my grandpa, Papa, was a tough dude. And he loved it. He loved it so much that I think he started loving it more than he loved me. Maybe not truly down inside, but on a day-to-day basis, it was a nice convenience for him. So kind of opened my eyes to say, wow, what if we can tech enable a new kind of caregiving using more of a pal to provide companion care and drive and provide house help and tech help and really just a helping hand to older adults. And so I quit my job at the time and I went all in. And
What were
that's
you doing? What were you doing before? Were you
I
in
was part
tech?
of, I was in tech. I was in health tech. I was part of the kind of health tech 1.0 or 2.0, however you frame it. But my dad and I were part of he founded and I was part of the founding team of a telehealth company in Florida called MD Live.
Got it. Got it. And that was obviously super early telehealth. And then having that experience, was it the personal experience of your grandfather and then you having the experience saying this is possible at this point? Like, was it that kind of combination?
Spot on. I mean, I learned a lot about what to do at MD Live, but frankly, I think I learned a lot about what not to do, or at least how to do it better. Better learn from other people's mistakes than my own, though I've made more of my own than I want to admit. That said, really having a deep understanding of healthcare, health plans, remote solutions to solve those problems, and really just an understanding if you can have this amazing trusted network and they could do stuff to help healthcare organizations and families, it's a pretty big opportunity. So yeah, 100% it was the two combined.
So the company started 2017. You went all in at that point. At what point did you guys start to get some real traction? When did you think to yourself, all right, we really have something here?
So I kind of convinced myself that if I didn't do it full time, which was definitely right, I wouldn't be able to get off the ground. I was testing it beforehand. I maybe got a couple of users, but it was really challenging. And then when I started full time, we actually launched as a consumer service. And frankly, out the gate, we got product market fit. It took us a while to get to that gate. There's other gates that we tried. But when we did some online marketing, pretty basic stuff, people needed help. We were getting people rides and helping them in their home and getting them to dialysis and just spending time with them. And that's kind of what sparked Papa. We went from $3,000 in revenue to 6,000 to 12,000. And I'm like, we're going to be the next Uber. It's been an interesting journey since then, but we're on our way.
Now, is it or was it, let's stay where we were. Was it an Uber model, like an on-demand type model, or was there, I'm assuming maybe some work that had to be done more than just a typical background check that an Uber driver would have so that the individuals and the families that were probably allowing the individuals to be on there trusted the product?
We had to do a lot more than Uber did from a trust perspective. I think something that also helped is the way you would access our service. The way that worked the most is we would actually call you and do this kind of like white glove interaction. And you get a trusted person on the phone. A lot of the times it would be me. And
Of course.
you show trust through, being friendly, listening, and going through just like a typical thing. I had felt like one of my main skills was actually being a companion to my friends and other people in my community. And I always was able to make friends really easily. And I just like leveraged those like being friendly skills to show trust. And then we, of course, went through thorough background checks. We interviewed the pals, we tracked them. But I think it was just such this new and unique thing that didn't have minimums, was super flexible, was super easy. And then, of course, when the pal showed up on time, the member loved it. And it just like time after each visit, every single person loved it. And I think that was like a really early aha moment. If you get friendly and carry people that, of course, have a clean background, but that's not as much of an issue. It's more, are they friendly? Are they caring? Do they understand this population? Do they have personal experience with it? And they show up on time and they're listening. And they're not there to provide you nursing care or, traditional home care like bathing, which could be uncomfortable. They're really just there to be your pal. That's the secret sauce. And frankly, we've just been trying to scale that ever since.
Did you typically get reached out to by the family of the individual, or was it the family themselves that reached out to you guys? And what's the word that you guys use? It because it's not a patient. This isn't.
We call them members.
Member. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
We call them members, and we thought it would be the family, but because our use case, at least initially, was kind of like this rising risk population, the members that were answering the phone or at least reaching out on our landing pages were actually seniors themselves. I think that was actually different than we thought. And we actually built the app originally for family caregivers and no one used it. And when we pivoted to online and then phone call with this white glove experience, it was kind of like a funny kind of big moment. And the reason we did that actually was not necessarily from user feedback per se, though we should have done that. It was actually, we spent a lot of money on this app, but it was not working. So we just figured the easiest thing to do was translate it to a phone number and then me on the phone, which ultimately became others on the phone. That ended up being a really good decision. The reason maybe wasn't the right reason, but it got us to where we needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, you got to where you needed to be. You talked about two aha moments. Talk about the very big moment, and I'll never forget when this happened to you. And I believe it was that you guys figured out, or an insurance code had changed, that you guys were able and your members were able to use insurance, and then you got implemented into several insurance platforms. Is that exactly what it was?
Exactly. Yeah. There were some changes in the law. There was some movement on the whole concept of loneliness from like the healthcare perspective, like it costs money, it lowers outcomes, people are more sick, et cetera, et cetera. I think everyone now knows that, especially since COVID, like loneliness is a real issue. Um, and so we started to pitch the health plans. And my background from MD Live was pitching to health plans, pitching to employers, like looking for distribution channels. I had no experience really with consumer, though we had some significant kind of early traction there. And so when that happened, we just started going at it hard. And we were kind of the only game in town. No one knew about this. Like I was searching the bowels of Medicare Advantage documentation to try to figure out these changes, which would be kind of an odd place to check. Like the consumer business was working, but I just felt like distribution was so critical. And that was a huge aha moment. And fast forward to today, that's actually all we do. We actually shut down our consumer business about a year in, and not because it was bad, actually. It was going really well. But we had to choose a path. And we ended up choosing the health plan path. We're actually going to launch in Q1 consumer again because we've solved some of the hardest problems, which are the supply and demand kind of chicken and egg. And we have the chicken or we have the egg, depending on your religious beliefs.
There you go. Let's talk about the current product, where the company's at. Give us TLDR, what does the business do now? The growth that you guys have had, some of the funding that you've raised, because it is nothing short of impressive what you've built right here in the great state of Florida.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think the most impressive thing for me is more that we've just helped so many people. We've done millions and millions of visits. We've crossed 10,000 cities where we've done an in-home visit. That's orders of magnitude more markets than Lyft. Not as many visits yet, but it's more markets. So we are truly in all 50 states. We've even done visits in Puerto Rico and Hawaii. And it's really a fact that people need help everywhere. But our business has really scaled through going through insurance carriers and employers and primarily Medicare Advantage. And we've really evolved from Grandkids on Demand to a true kind of national companion care platform. Our pals are no longer college kids. They're actually more like stay-at-home moms or former family caregivers or even professional caregivers that want to help people through our platform. And we pretty much exclusively work through these health plan arrangements where not only are we a nice benefit, members get free services paid for by their insurance carrier, but we've proven through third-party studies that we save money, we deliver healthcare outcomes, we reduce loneliness, obviously, and we could also be leveraged as an in-home advocate. And so we've layered in really interesting things to help to facilitate care gap closure and getting medication pickups and medication adherence and doing assessments, not to be a commoditized kind of go in and get out, but to really bring a longitudinal view on how do we help these members. They trust us. We're in the home. The pals have technology and an app in their hand, and they're great guides and they're capable. And so how can we upskill them to do that?
How have you guys, and I'm interested to understand, like the 1099 workforce with some of these companies, when you look across the board, it's been so challenging. How have you guys retained pals? I'm assuming it's not, an extremely lucrative business for these individuals, probably going back to your words of care and love and kindness, like they want to do these things. But how have you done a good job of retaining that 1099 workforce?
I think mission is a big part of it. A lot of these people are doing it because they lost a parent or a family member. They do need extra pay. They need some extra money. Some of them are doing it not full time at all, but enough to make some nice amount of money, take home money. But really a big thing we've done is build relationships. So the member needs help, but actually our pals are a bit older than they were historically, and they don't need help, but they like companionship. They are sitting at home alone. They're doing nothing. They're waiting for their kids to come home. They maybe have a partner, maybe they don't. They have some extra time in their hands, and you can only read so many books, you can only play golf so many times. So I think what we found is that by not only developing like a mission oriented business, which we really focus on, paying them a really fair wage or allowing them to make enough money on the platform, but we also develop relationships. So we have this thing called Preferred Pals where Andrew comes to Saxon's house every week and we truly become friends and they're getting paid for that. So some people may only have 5 members or 50 members or 20 members. And so you could kind of choose what you want based on what you're able to provide and want to provide. But you really do build relationships. Actually, Papa, one of the things we do is try to encourage our employees, our full-time employees, engineers, product people, et cetera, to be pals. We have a Be a Pal program.
Oh, I love that.
And it's funny, you hear a lot of the employees.
Eat your own dog food.
Exactly. Well, the dog's name is Chewy, funny enough. All of the employees maintain those relationships with those members, just because they feel the almost obligation to be there for them. So there has this kind of cohesive relationship that occurs and the benefit that happens on both sides. Plus you get paid, plus it's mission oriented.
Got it. I want to hear some stories, challenges, success wins about the business. But before we get there, you really, in my opinion, as I think about and look back on the last 10 years of my career in venture capital, you are one of the organic sort of success stories in the state of Florida in terms of raising funds, building a business that really kind of, I would say, is unique in the sense of you didn't come from somewhere else. You grew up in the area. You didn't come down during COVID when all the other investors came. Talk a little bit about your fundraising journey, working with investors in the state of Florida, and just the overall kind of ecosystem when it comes to technology and innovation in the state of Florida. Would be very interested to hear how your perspective as an entrepreneur is around that, because it's something we talk about all the time, of course.
Yeah, well, I give all the credit to my parents as early adopters to Florida. We moved in 1992 when I was like 4 years old, and I don't remember like before Florida. I always wanted to be a tech entrepreneur. The community was pretty nascent, and in 2011, 17, when I left my job to go focus on Papa, I decided to get an office in the WeWork in Miami and Brickell, which is really the kind of, I think, some of the beginning of the tech community kind of budding beyond kind of old school IT version of technology, like really product oriented. And I think that was where it all began. And I started to raise money. I had no idea how to raise money. I didn't know a safe actually barely existed in Florida back then.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was like YC was just kind of getting going, if I remember correctly. Like, weren't a thing on the East Coast, really.
Yeah, no one on the East Coast. I think I was maybe the first or second company to ever go to YC. I never heard of YC before at this moment, when I met you. Originally. And so there was very nascent community and also a nascent investor group. And frankly, I tried meeting with a lot of investors and I went to the Florida Venture Forum, and a lot of the early investors I met at these activities were angel investors that had mostly invested in real estate or, restaurants or, the stock market. They had capital. They're actually very liquid, but they had no exposure. And I actually spent most of my time explaining the difference between a safe and a convertible note, which I barely knew what either of them were at the time, which was challenging. But it really started to bud from there. I mean, Florida Venture Forum was in the beginning. Florida Funders was there early on as well. And it gave me exposure to the Florida community. And then at the same time, I thought it was an interesting path for us to take to say, oh, maybe we could get in this like far-fetched concept of Y Combinator. And I think for me, I raised my seed round in Florida, my pre-seed round in Florida.
Who led the pre-seed round? Was it angels? Was it a group?
It was just all angels. It was a safe type of a round, convertible note round. I couldn't get people to agree. Like, to be honest, I think I was just at the beginning of it where they were pretty scared of this concept of like a national care network, Medicare. I don't get it. Everyone was worried that we wouldn't be able to recruit and manage pals. We've actually been better than that than anything else, probably, funny enough. And so I think we were just kind of like super early in that moment. It's kind of been a journey in my life. I'm always like telehealth early, national companion care early, even like changes in high school and college happened and like the world changed right after me. So it was something I was comfortable with, like going into this like Wild West environment. And I think actually it became a superpower of mine because I felt really comfortable in the abyss. Like if there's rules, I get a little bit like it's hard for me to follow. If there's no rules, that's like really good opportunity for me. But you saw the dynamic change dramatically in COVID. And then now everyone thought, oh, Miami Tech. And I became the token tech guy. Like, as you mentioned, we were one of the first like homegrown companies to really make it big in that way. And it was a fun experience. I'm like, I knew Miami was going to be hot. I knew South Florida was going to be hot. I knew Florida in general. But there's always been opportunity here. I mean, I remember being at the event and they're talking about space. I mean, Florida's been on the frontier of space always, and even now. And so
did you go through YC? I didn't know you went through YC.
Yeah, we went through YC in summer 2018.
Wow. Okay. So is that did you live out in SF? Did you move out there for a little bit?
Well, I lived there for 4 months and I spent every day saying, should I live here? Should I live here? Should I live here? And I decided to come back.
Got it. And the big round that you don't have to give the details, but the big round that you guys raised, when was that? Who led that round? Because that was kind of set you guys off to a different level.
Yeah, we raised our last round in the end of 21. So we raised it from SoftBank and Tiger and a couple others, TCG as well.
So how much of you going out to YC and going through YC would you attribute those investors knowing about the business, or was it completely sort of unrelated and you would have got there anyway?
It's hard to say. What I'll say is without YC, I probably wouldn't have gotten the early version of it, like the round, and maybe not even the Series A. So it's, all these stepping stones are critical, but knowing me and our approach, like I would have met the people somehow, some way, no matter what.
You would have figured it out.
Being at YC in front of everyone, and we were like the hottest company in the year we were there. 200 people tried to invest in one day, and we got exposed to the entire valley. So if they didn't know about Papa before, they knew about Papa after, and so it just opened a lot of doors, and definitely helped me meet my initial Series seed investor.
So do you think everybody was so excited about the story of Papa when you were at YC Demo Day because it was a relatable story that they've all seen? Was it because of traction, or was it you just went on stage and absolutely killed it? Like, what was it? What got everybody so jacked up?
Well, probably I would say two of the three at least. One is the mission. I mean, everyone listening to this podcast can relate to the story. Whether you have a family, a neighbor, and you just understand older adults. There's 1 billion older adults in the world. So it's a very big population, obviously.
And it's growing. I mean, you would know the stats better than me, but it's growing now like an insane pace, right?
Like 10,000 people.
Baby boomers yeah.
And then, family caregivers need help. So it's like 20-30% of the world essentially needs some sort of help, whether it's for them or their family. So definitely like the relatability of it. I think the fact that it was Uber-ified, and it felt like the maybe last Uber-ifiable thing. And they're like, there's one more,
we can still get it to work.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was it. And frankly, the fact that we had this change in Medicare definitely sparked people's ears. At the same time, it actually made it quite challenging for us because though they love the business, they didn't understand Medicare. So we kind of fit in between this like health tech company and this consumer oriented company. And we didn't really fit in a box. And funny enough, that seems to be true still to this day. We invented something new in a very regulated category that is not used to doing something new and try to break into that and did that successfully. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. That's for sure. Most
entrepreneurs are, my friend. Most are. That is just a part of the game. This is a good segue. Talked about this big deal you did in 2021. There's obviously high stress. You've been working your ass off for years to get to that point. How do you stay level-headed? This is something I always ask successful entrepreneurs. How do you stay level-headed? How do you stay calm? What are some tactical things that you can share with our audience that you did throughout that time, or you continue to do when things get tough, the going gets tough, whatever you want to call it? Like, what are your kind of outlets and what keeps you sane?
To be honest, every time someone asks me, especially when like it was really publicized where we're at, how's Papa? How cool? How's it going? And all I think about is negative stuff. So like maybe the way I stay humble is I'm not really focused on all the excitement. I want exciting things to happen, but once they happen, I'm over it. I'm ready to go to the next thing that needs to be solved. So I think it's kind of easy to be humble in that regard, just because it's actually insanely difficult and it doesn't feel like it's exciting as it seems a lot of the times, though I love it, to be clear. In terms of like calmness, it's pretty challenging. I mean, there were times when Papa seemed like everything was going right. There was times when everything was going wrong. There was times when we almost ran out of money. There's times when we had so much money. There's times when, our employees were going crazy, or maybe not crazy is the right term, but, they were fighting and there were silos and we had to fix that. So I think it's pretty challenging to stay level headed, especially as you're building in public, which I like doing. But I picked up running. I think that's probably the number one thing.
There you go.
I try to go on vacations quite a bit, even though I bring work along with me, but at least I can look out in the mountains or something. And I maintain a really close friend group that I've had for 30 years, 25 years. And my wife, really just having a partner. It's really hard to be a partner of somebody that's doing this every day. And it's frankly hard to be a founder and separate, like, I just got off the most intense meeting ever, and then trying to be all cheery and friendly. That said, I'm a naturally cheery and friendly person. I started a companionship company, so I'm good at being a companion, and I try to balance it all. I also don't take myself very seriously.
Interesting. Tell us more about that. You don't take yourself very seriously. Like, that is, I feel like I try to do that. A lot of entrepreneurs, I feel like, take themselves way too seriously, and they just give you that vibe, that rub of like, maybe this isn't somebody I want to work with. What does that mean to you?
I think I'm just kind of a goofball at my core.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, like I was essentially like not a class clown, but kind of like always trying to make people laugh. Like, even in meetings nowadays, like, there's no difference between Andrew at home or Andrew at work. I just try to, being funny is a core part of who I am. And I'm not always that funny, to be honest, but at least trying to be funny. So I just think it's my personality is in that way. I will say it's hard. It's gotten harder to not take myself so seriously sometimes, but I try to reminisce of like how I was in middle school or something. I used to say when I was little, everything's middle school. And I actually think that was a pretty smart comment to make as a young child, because it's kind of true. There's cliques and people are just making jokes and having fun, and life's pretty fun. Life's pretty awesome. I think, at least I've had a good experience. So even if it's hard, it's harder for other people than it is for me.
That's how I always think about it. Even when it gets extremely tough, just think about we're here having this conversation today. So that's what it's all
We're
about.
having fun. I'm healthy.
That's what it's all about. All right. Let's talk about the current state of innovation technology. I always want to ask about AI. What are you guys doing inside of AI? What are you using internally inside of the business? How has Gen AI changed the business? What's the lay of the land for you guys at Papa?
Well, I think the coolest thing is, like, every time you try to solve a problem, now you have a new tool in the toolkit. And so it's, how can we use it? It's not necessarily we're going to use it, but it's how can we use it, and does it make sense for this use case? We did a very deep analysis actually before just like running and gunning to say, where can it be most successful? Where can we test it internally and externally? And we kind of landed on a nice AI roadmap that we implement, over time. And actually, one of our initial use cases is pretty simple, just like QAing messages and calls to reduce the amount of QA people. Another thing is using AI for ID verification, kind of like TSA level, where you take a photo of yourself and an image of a license to match it. But now we're getting into kind of more deep things around how do we lower costs. We think that's a really good place to start because it doesn't have a potential negative impact on our users. And so one of the first things we're doing is we actually have a 30-person or 40-person team right now called Visit Success. And it's literally human beings that call pals, which is what we call our caregivers, and say, hey, can you take this visit? We'll pay you $5 more. And we actually call versus text or notification. The reason is because a lot of times the pals are driving. And so we're going to be testing this in a month or so. We're working on it now for AI to call and say, hey, Saxon, there's a visit in your area. Do you want to take it for $5? If I could take my 35, 40 people down to 20 people or 10 people, or even more importantly, not grow it, that's pretty impactful. And what that means is we could then charge less and maintain payment to our pals.
So have you guys, let me ask you this, have you guys been spending more because of AI, or is it a cost savings for you guys at this point because of personnel that you've been able to replace with different sorts of AI systems?
For us, it's been a minor cost savings so far, but
Okay.
the intention of our first 5 use cases are all cost savings oriented. We're not building our own models or anything like that. We're not having huge AI databases. We're leveraging other tools where it makes sense. Like, we focus on what we're good at. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. But that said, there's a huge opportunity to leverage our data that we have on the visits, the members, their experience. We have millions of calls, millions of visits. We track everything that's happening to make some predictive modeling around, who's going to be sick, who's going to fall, who's going to go to the hospital.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about that piece. Like, you guys have all this information. Predictive analytics seems like it would be kind of the next step, right?
And then predictive analytics isn't necessarily AI, but then leveraging that to recommend to our caregivers, recommend to the family, recommend to the health plan in a way that is digestible and useful and actionable. So, yeah, I mean, I think we have a very unique data set. No one really has in-home data, and we are in the home so often, and we're going to be doing more stuff to get more data in the home, not to sell data, but to better help the member, better impact their lives, and provide a better experience.
So it's interesting you just used the term "we're in the home." And throughout my career, I've heard this with several companies. Like, once you get your foot in the door, once you're in the home, you own so much more of a total individual's spend in life. You guys have stayed really focused on what you do. Has there been opportunity to build tangential pieces? For example, is there opportunities to get into pharmacy management, to get into, actual healthcare in terms of nurse staffing or something along those lines? I'm sure these opportunities have come to you in the past. Have you thought about that and just stayed really core to what you guys are good at?
Well, we stayed core for a very long time. I mean, Papa's almost 10th year, and that was important to really build this like massive logistics software. Now that we have that, we are adding some new provider types. It's still within the caregiving realm, but kind of going upscale a little bit. At the same time, we're launching a new product, net new, in about 90 days or less, which is to pair people with our medical group virtually and then connect them to a community health worker. And that will be covered through Medicare, but direct to consumer. And so we're not trying to be a jack of all trades, but leveraging our in-home assets with a wraparound solution that could ultimately become more clinical is definitely on our roadmap.
Got it. No, that makes sense. What are the next 5 years look like for you? What's next? I know you said you got the consumer product coming out. You just talked a little bit about some more product pieces. What's next for you and the team? What are you really excited about, over the next 5 years or so?
It's really to get to be the best in-home care solution, period, and to upskill our caregivers to provide real outcomes and real impact, and to provide access to more people beyond just health plans, or in addition to what you get from the health plans, long-term care insurance, senior living communities, areas on aging, referrals, post-discharge solutions, because we've solved the hardest part. And by focusing on the one channel this whole time and doing that with a configurable mindset, it's actually allowed us to build for these other channels, even though we were only focusing on the first channel. And so we're kind of at that stage now, though I thought we were going to get there 5 years ago. So in the next 5 years, the vision will come into more of a full picture. And probably the deck I showed you when we met, 7 years ago, had a slide that indicates this exact vision. So it's been that plan from the beginning. And it's really fun actually to go back and look at those and be like, oh my God, I actually thought about this.
So it's funny you say that. It always takes longer and it's always more expensive to do everything. Would you say true?
It's beyond true.
It's beyond true.
That's why I'm glad I raised a lot of money.
Good. That's what you need runaway to get through. And then you get that breakthrough and you're in a great position. Hey, appreciate everything. Appreciate you being such a stud in the state of Florida and making it happen for the ecosystem. Anything else to share with our viewers? Anything you're listening to? Anything you're reading? Any pieces of advice you'd give your middle school self, that class clown that that you still sometimes are?
I would tell the class clown to keep doing what he's doing. You're doing a good job, bro. And in terms of books, I just read Project Runway. That doesn't show my
I was going to say, is that like Dancing with the Stars? I think I watched that one too.
It's like a wedding show. I don't even know. Project Hail Mary.
Okay.
Which is very different, which is going to be a Ryan Gosling movie about a guy that goes to save the world in space. Another good movie is Red Rising, which is like a dark version of Hunger Games. Oh. I actually started going outside of the self-help books because I've read every self-help book. Myself is helped. Now it's time to get out of that mindset. And yeah, I think more people should move to Florida. There's a lot of opportunities here. Remote culture works if that's part of it, but it's a beautiful place to be. And we need more engineers. We need more product people. We need more designers. We have a lot of finance people, a lot of sales people. We want more of you as well, but Florida's a good place to build a company, and I'm staying here.
It's a great place to build a company. It's a great place to invest. And you have it firsthand right here. It is possible to build a very large, successful company from the ground floor here in Florida. Andrew, it was so good to see you as always, my friend. I will talk to you soon. Hopefully see you down in Miami over the next few weeks, and we will catch you soon.
Let's do it.
And if anybody enjoyed our podcast today, please throw us a like, throw us a follow, share anything on Instagram, whatever it might be. We're always looking for new guests and new audience members. So appreciate you all being here today.